Hey anyone, thanks for coming back to my channel. I'm Victoria Harrington. You're watching Visually Growing, and this whole thing is visually happening. I've been away for a minute, but only because I was promoting these series of commercials that I put out. So if you'd like to take a look, they're the last three. Actually, they're the last four downloads. Oh my god. They're the last four uploads that are on my page, and I've linked them somewhere around here. I haven't decided because I've never actually done that before, so it's going to be somewhere around here. The four of them. So please check them out. Let me know what you think. They're Spec spots. They're like Nike inspired. It was just a way to boost up my resume, and it would really mean a lot to me if you guys checked it out. So that's out of the way. I wanted to discuss this month about straightening your hair when you got curly cut layers, like I do. So, ideally, you don't want to straighten your hair too often, especially if you're on a curly journey. I know I felt in the beginning it to be really difficult to not want to straighten my hair because your hair looks like garbage in the beginning of your curly journey because your hair's transitioning and trying to come back. So for me, that's kind of also why I did the big chop, so I wouldn't be tempted because there was no hair to straighten. So, but now that I'm past that point, I like to check in with my length about every 6 months or so, and I'm at my 6-month mark. Actually, almost to the T. The last time I straightened my hair was Halloween when Alex and I were Forrest and Jenny, and at that point my hair was about up to here. So it looks like I've gotten this much since Halloween, and I've also had a trim in between. So not doing too bad, not too shabby. Anyway, so what I wanted to really further discuss was that I don't think it's a bad thing to want to straighten your hair every once in a while on your journey because we all want to know exactly what our length is. So if you are going to do that, I just want to share some tips on how to make the most of your hair without damaging it. For me, personally, you're more than welcome to try it or knock it, whatever you want. I like to, whenever I want to do a length check, I like doing it on a deep condition day. Hold on. Minnie! I hope you can hear her. Anyway, ideally I like doing it on a deep condition day because that's when my hair is at its most protected. That's when I've given it as much love and nutrients as possible. That's what I did. So I did my deep condition routine, and instead of putting in my normal curly products when I was done with the shower the second time, I put in 2 different products. Now again, I haven't straightened it in a while, so I'm a little rusty on some things, but for the most part, this is generally what I did. So I found 2 products in my mom's closet for what she uses when she straightens her hair. And so I know that this is like a really good brand, so I used It's a 10 Miracle Leave-In Plus while my hair was still wet from the shower. And I just spray that around liberally, get as much of it in there as possible, and then put a little of this Daily Silk Serum from Oscar Biondi. It's for all hair types, so I thought it wouldn't hurt for me to use, especially since my mom and I have different hair types. I wanted to use something that's universally good for me as well. So put a little bit of this in it, spread it around like you normally would, but I didn't towel dry it. I left it alone. And so for the time between doing that and then putting my makeup on, my hair was pretty damp. And so that's my first tip. Number 1 tip, you want to do this on damp hair. You don't want to do it on too wet of hair because it'll be too heavy and you can't really manipulate it. And then you don't want it to be too dry because then there'll be nothing for it to hang on to and almost impossible to really manipulate to what you want it to look like. So you want it to be on damp hair. Once you're done with your makeup or whatever you do in the half hour between like a decent drying period. I have to sneeze. Oh, what was I up to? You're done with your makeup, right? So once you're done with your makeup, or whatever you do in the period that you're drying, letting your hair dry, that's when you're ideally ready to start straightening your hair. Again, if you don't already have one, you should really get some kind of water, spray water bottle, whether you're doing your hair curly or whether you're doing your hair straight. So if there are a couple of parts that are a little dry, you just want to spritz that on, get it a little wet, and since they're the smaller parts, they'll dry out pretty quickly anyway. So now you're about ready to get started. So because we have such short layers, because of, you know, the curly cuts, or if you are someone like me that has a bunch of layers because of your curly cut, it's a little, it gets a little crazy when you're trying to separate the layers, but little layer by layer will help you a whole lot in the long run. So you want to just really try to find, you know, which layer and how to separate them, and just do little by little at that point. It makes your life way easier. So once you've gotten that part ready, I personally like to do the bottom part. Do that part first, get that part ready. Before you get started on actually doing it, make sure your hair dryer is at a low and at a warm, so that way you aren't putting too much heat onto one part of your head. While you're doing it, you also want to move the brush as much as possible, so again, you're not targeting too much heat on one part of your hair and ruin all that, you know, journey, ruin all that process and progress that you put into your hair. So you just want to kind of go at it. You're going to get hand cramps. It's going to happen. You're just going to have to go with it. And then at that point, then you just kind of keep going from there. And if you're also like me, who isn't a professional cosmetologist in the least bit, or a hairstylist in the least bit, there are going to be some parts, especially the hair that's closest to your scalp, that kind of have that wave that's really hard to get rid of without putting, you know, too much heat onto it. So if you want to make your life a little easier, the way that I do use a straightener for just those parts. Another tip is to not have the heat all the way up on the straightener as well. You want it, I want it this way, and it works for me, so it might work for you, to put it halfway. That way that isn't too hot that you could singe your hair, but there is enough heat, again, that you can manipulate your hair. So I usually just run that at the very top, and then if I have to, or if I feel I must have it all, then just one straight all the way through, and then leave it alone. And then that's really it. You're going to just keep kind of going layer by layer until you get to the tippity top. And at that point, you can polish it how you please. I personally, this is kind of a rule of thumb, so you should probably do this anyway. Take whatever serum you're using again, put a little bit, and just sort of spread it throughout your hair, just so that you get rid of as much frizz as possible. And that's really that. And you'll have a certain look, especially if you use a hairdryer first. For me, because I kind of suck at this is my second day. I usually wake up and my hair is kind of curled and it's gotten really high up, so I do take a straightener and put it back up, and then just kind of go layer by layer, but little bit, making sure it's on the halfway point. So let's review the tips once again. I personally believe it's best to do it on a deep condition day. That way you have all the nutrients and all the care into your hair before you jump into this. Number 2 is you want your hair damp. Number 3 is make sure your hair dryer, hi honey, make sure your hair dryer is on warm and low. Number 4 number 4 is to move the brush with the dryer as much as possible so you don't target too much heat on one part of your hair. And number 5 is if you use a straightener, keep that at halfway so that, again, not too much heat on one target. And that's really my advice on straightening your hair with curly layers. And that's what I do. Can you see her? Thank you guys so much for coming back again. Oh God, thank you guys so much for coming back to my channel again. Sorry for the delays in the last few weeks, but again, please check out my spec spots if you haven't already. I'll be back with another video in a couple of weeks, and until then, take care if you can, and I'll see you guys then.